Welcome to Monday Nights at Free Food, the first of our monthly series. This series is going to be a series of talks with change makers in the community that are really making a change in the world through love. My name is Bob Wilms. I'm the co-director of Free Food here in Harlem. So for the last 3 years, Free Food has been in Harlem serving food every week, up to 800 meals a week, and serving food wherever we could. And then about 6 months ago, we ran into Reverend Mutu of the Emmanuel AME Church. And we also ran into Jill Conklin of Food for Soul, which is Massimo Butera's nonprofit. And our world changed. We were so fortunate to meet them. In both Jill and Reverend, we found partners that share a vision of creating community and creating connection through love and through dignity. And so we would both like to thank Reverend, who I don't believe could make it tonight, and Jill, who is somewhere out here in the audience, for being hi Jill, for being such amazing partners. So thank you. We can give Jill a hand. We also have a lot of amazing partners that have been with us on our journey over the years. We have Exodus, which is an amazing project here in Harlem. We have Housing Works that has so generously introduced us to some amazing talent in the kitchen. We have Setapani, a Harlem fixture restaurant that's been in the neighborhood for many years and are now friends of ours. We also have Adovo, who has been hosting our programs for quite a long time. And so thank you. So the Free Food vision, what is Free Food Harlem? Free Food is part of the nonprofit Unconditional Freedom. And we exist to really transform the way we think about food. So food, of course, is nutrition. It's important to have organic ingredients. But what we feel is the most important ingredient is love and service. And so really we're here to share with the community both love and service. And what food does when it's used in this way is it can really touch the soul and the spirit. It can elicit emotion. It can bring us back to ourselves. And this is something that we offer to everybody that we get in contact with. So what do we do here at Free Food and at Refectorio Harlem? We serve 3-course meals to the community free of charge. Anybody can come with the idea of experiencing love and dignity and creating an atmosphere where everyone gets to have that experience of being in the restaurant, being loved, getting served, especially for those that might not be able to afford it. And so we do this 2 to 3 times a week. We serve about 500 to 800 meals a week. We also rescue 2,000 pounds of organic produce every week that goes directly back into the hands of the community. I know some of you are here, and I just want to also give a shout out, and hopefully all of us can give a shout out to those that come and get to enjoy our meals every week. We couldn't do what we do if you weren't here, so thank you for all coming. We're going to show you a little video about Free Food.
Where is there the most need or the most darkness is something we've looked at, and there's prisons, and then there's homelessness and hunger.
That's what we do with Free Food, is farm fresh ingredients, nutrient dense, prepared and served with love.
And that's really what we wanted to have, is this feeling of healthy food, good food, food that I would love to eat, that you would love to eat, that anyone would love to eat, like it felt like a nourishing meal.
I mean, there's nothing I love more than these people taking these ideas and bringing them into life, bringing them into reality, and then all of a sudden, what was just an idea of a conversation mentioned in a living room becomes walking into a dining hall and seeing a full gourmet farm-to-table meal prepared for the homeless people who live on my street. It's so fulfilling and gratifying. So Free Food is born on the idea that food is medicine. Not only the nutrients in the food medicine, but the way it's shared and delivered is medicine. And one way to do that is with, farm fresh ingredients.
Through food, one is able to know their community in a way that's different than almost anything else.
And so the idea was that, we should serve the poorest, the most vulnerable among us in the same way that we would serve the wealthiest.
It's so welcoming, That's the good part of it.
It's farm to table, but it's not just farm to table. There's something else that's not only added, but actually essential to what we're trying to do with free food, which is to communicate dignity through food.
So that's free food. That is what we're doing here. Next, I'd like to talk about unconditional freedom and its core project. But first, let me tell you the story about how we met Topeka. So Dr. Topeka Sam and us met about 18 months ago. Did we meet her or did she meet us? We're not totally sure. Somehow our worlds collided and our lives will never be the same, thankfully. Topeka's quite a wonderful individual and has been really a huge supporter of our program, the Prison Monastery. Now, the Prison Monastery is looking at, as you can see there's a prison, but there's a farm. And so what happens if you take our existing prisons in the world, already built, already with staffs, already with cultures in them, and you just tweak it? And so instead of those prisons being places for punishment, where people get, where there's more pain inflicted on people, what if we turn it into a place of penitence? What if it becomes a place for contemplation, for the human spirit to grow, for people to learn, for people to get inspired so that when they come out and circulate back into the population, they want to contribute? That's what our program's about. As Dr. Stefano Bertazzi from UC Berkeley says, our program is about creating good neighbors. If we create good neighbors that come back into communities, everyone wins. So what we do is we introduce farms. We introduce farms to the prison, so organic farms where you can grow vegetables and the incarcerated actually get to go outside. They get to touch the earth. They get to learn what the natural cycle of life is like, what the ecology is like. And not only do we transform the ecology on the outside, but we help, or we give them tools to transform the ecology of the inside, the inner life as well. And so we have a program called The Art of Soul Making, which is a book of contemplative practices that gives them the opportunity to really explore themselves. And so back to the Art of Soul Making, we also have a program called The Art of Addiction, which looks at, totally transforms the way we look at addiction as being something wrong to something that shows an inherent depth of humanity, of someone wanting to touch something greater. And then we look at how you can transform the way we approach finite substances, like drugs or alcohol, into an infinite resource like creativity. We also have a program called Guards to Guardians that looks at how to transform correctional officers so that they can actually step into the nobility of who they are and become a generative part of the prison environment. We have 20 mentor officers that have 30, 40 years experience that have gone all around the prisons to work with the corrections officers. We now have quantitative and qualitative research that shows the efficacy of our programs like Art of Soul Making and Art of Addiction. And we've seen some amazing results. You can go to the last slide. One of the things that we saw is that across our programs, there's a 15 to 20% reduction in anger and depression, in wanting to use substances. And the programs have now been worked on by over 35,000 individuals across the country in around 430 facilities as well. So our programs are really doing quite well. And now, allow me to introduce and say a few words about my friend, Dr. Topeka Sam. Topeka was formerly incarcerated, and when she was released from prison, she dedicated her life to really transforming not only how we look at the incarcerated, but how we look at women as they're incarcerated. So she founded the Ladies of Ministry Hope, which now has reentry facilities all over, including one in the Bronx. And Topeka has also participated in changing legislation. So she's somebody that not only thinks and dreams about what it could be like, but somebody that puts it into action. And so she was part of legislation that changed the way that women, when they're incarcerated, can no longer be shackled when they're going through labor. And so she's, yes. In any event, I'm not going to go on too long because she's going to talk, and you'll get to hear this directly from her. But needless to say, Topeka, we're very grateful that you're here, and I can't wait to hear you talk. The person that's going to be in conversation with Topeka tonight is someone that is also very special in our lives. His name is Ira Silverberg. Now, Ira was the editor-in-chief of Grove Press. He was the publisher of High Risk Books. He was a senior editor at Simon & Schuster. He's been a part of the New York Council of Arts and is currently, and has been for quite a long time, an adjunct professor at Columbia University. A wonderful literary mind, and we're glad to have him here. So without further ado, Ira and Topeka, come up to stage, please.
Yes, I'm on this right. All right.
So I haven't seen you since Chowchilla.
Yeah, since
We went to
Chowchilla.
federal
Which,
prison
by
together.
the way, I wasn't incarcerated at, but
Right, so-
I was visiting with you there
How long were you incarcerated?
for 3.5 years. So half of the 7, but for 3.5 years, which felt like 30 years to me. There is no good prison or
Thank you.
jail.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that there are any that are better, ever. I think that there are ways that we can hold people accountable while also healing them. It does not look like our prison system, American prison system, as we know it today, which is why I feel that there are some incredible programs that I have seen, and I've had the opportunity to visit other prisons around the world, which allowed me to really open my mind and eyes of really reimagining what community could look like when you heal people.
Well, this is what's amazing about it. You know, you go to prison for 3.5 years, you come out, and you're like helping, especially women, deal with what's going on inside and what's going on outside. I mean, restoring dignity first and foremost, but also you found that essential services were missing in people's lives. And I when I heard about this idea that you're opening a bank
Yeah, that too.
for people who are incarcerated because they can't get checking accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And did that come from the personal experience of?
Well, I think for me, you know, I was really fortunate, you know, having grew up in a 2-parent home, having had the opportunity to see entrepreneurs through my parents. They were franchise business owners and restaurateurs, and they taught us that the only way to financial freedom would be to own your own. And so, you know, for me, the natural progression for me in my life was to go to college. That's what I was taught to do. And so I grew up in Manorville in Long Island. It was an all-white neighborhood. We were the only black family in our neighborhood. And so when it was time for me to go, I chose an HBCU. And so I went to Morgan State University in Baltimore. It's one of my best friends from college right there. But while there, you know, it was a whole nother culture shock for me. So, you know, you go from being one of only to one of many. And while I was trying to really find my own sense of connectedness of belonging, really started dating, learning to do things outside of what Long Island looked like, which was Baltimore City. I started dating guys that were off campus, who were, you know, you don't know, but I'm telling you, like, you know, drug dealers. who were selling drugs. And, again, telling you that I was, came from entrepreneurs, I saw that as a business opportunity. And so I said, well, why do they keep getting arrested? They don't know what they're doing. They're not doing smart business. And so I went from just being a girl who was dating a guy who was selling drugs to then found myself selling drugs myself. And this went on for some years, and there's a story in between that'll be a movie one day. But to fast forward, I ended up in my 30s, division chairperson for Amtrak for New York and DC. I owned a business, was wanting to scale another business, and I had stopped selling drugs for about 7 years prior, got a phone call out of the blue 7 years later, was like, you know what, I can do this one last run to get this money to open this next business, and it was a federal drug sting operation. Right, that's what I said. So I found myself arrested and put in a county jail in Virginia, Pamunkey Regional Jail. And I thought, well, no big deal. There was no drugs. This was a sting operation. I'll just bail out. And so I get to court. The judge is like, well, you're a drug queen, threat to society, no bail. And so I said, all right, well, now I'm going to be a part of this new community. And so now I'm here. And while there, I'm inside, and I'm separating myself first, because my friend's like, don't talk to those people. You're not like those people. And so I didn't. And I was in a cell for 21 to 23 hours a day by myself because I was a federal detainee in a county jail, and they kept us separate. And the only time we were able out of our cell was when they did programs. And so there was a GED program. I didn't need that. There was a computer class. I taught that. There was a class where you can go with Bible study. I did that. And then there was NA and AA classes. And so I did those because I just wanted to get out the cell. And so finally, one day I'm just sitting there, and in my own arrogance, people are saying, hey, my name is such and such, and, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict. And, I'm just like, whatever, people did drugs because they wanted to. This was my thought. And no one put drugs in your hand. You could have made a choice. And then one day I just asked the question, why did you use drugs? And this changed my life. A woman said her father had been raping her, and he gave her heroin for the first time and told her to take the heroin so the pain would go away. And another woman was like, the only time she was able to spend time with her mother was when they smoked crack together. And again, I didn't know about any of these things. And so, I was also raised in the church, and I knew who God was. I felt spiritually convicted, and I said, well, I cried, and I asked him for forgiveness because I didn't know how I could contribute to the harm of someone else. And so when it was time for me to go to court, I said, well, I can either A, try to fight this case. I was facing 20 years because it was a federal drug conspiracy charge. And it didn't matter that there were no drugs. The fact that someone said that I was going to sell drugs was enough for them to give me 20 years. So I didn't want that. So I said, well, I need to make amends, and I'll plead guilty. And I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I'll get a few years because I'm taking responsibility and all these things. And so I pled guilty, and I got to court and to sentencing and thought that, well, the judge will give me some leniency. I had everyone there, people I worked with, people I went to school with, my family, friends, and people testified on my behalf. And it was time for my sentencing. The judge said he wanted to make an example out of me and sentenced me to 10 years and 10 months in federal prison. And so I got to federal prison, and I learned new things. And, I went from being in the county jail with poor Black, white, brown women, low levels of education, low socioeconomic backgrounds, to doctors, lawyers, senators, judges, different opportunities, but it was the same underlying issues: early childhood trauma, sexual trauma and violence, mental health issues, substance misuse. And one night I just asked God, what do you want me to do? And it was clear. I would start an organization called the Ladies of Hope Ministries. And the rest is history. I could keep going, but I know you have some more questions.
Well, You're amazing. Because rare is the person who goes in being set up, entrapment by the federal government.
It was entrapment.
Right.
I would say it was entrapment.
And comes out and does the work you've done. And you also, you're a policymaker. You're not just kind of helping on the ground. You're helping in the air. In that kind of weird space of making policy and working with both sides. And I'm curious how that happen. Like, you're infiltrating at all levels. I mean, I know we have people here from Edgcomb where thank you for coming, where you're doing some really great work, which we'll get to, but like you're connecting and getting to that high level is fascinating to me because you did it really fast. So
Yeah.
what was it?
Well, I'm going to tell you about transferable skills first.
Please.
And then I'll go into that, right? So I realized most recently, and I tell people all the time, that we do have transferable skills, right? Skills that we may use in one industry or one job, and we can move it into another. And I realize I am a connector. That's what I do. I connect people, I connect and make opportunities, I know how to network. And that was the same thing that I did when I sold drugs. I mean, I was not the person that actually gave the drugs hand to hand. I had the connect, and I connected people. So it's just something that was a gift. I use my powers for good now and not evil, which I did before. But, you know, I share that in this room because I know there are people who've lived the same experience as I, and that there are things that we may have done in our past that can help in our present. And so don't utilize or think that those things that you did were all, you know, all just an exercise of futility, because it is necessary and can help you. I'm looking at you because you came up to me and told me you were just coming home and you started your organization. And so you can use those skills that you have within you in order to grow and shine. So I'm gonna share that. But in being a connector and doing policy, and why I've done all the things is because I kept finding gaps, and I kept seeing things that there was things that were missing. And then I would meet incredible people like Susan Rosenberg, who's there. You all need to know who she is too, so talk to her, political prisoner. But people who I met and who taught me and would help me to see the work one way, right? Because, you know, I came home, and when we think about even language, you know, you hear people being called inmate, convict, felon, and we don't use that language because it's dehumanizing. But it was people like Susan who shared that with me, because while I knew innately it wasn't right, I didn't know what was the right thing to use. And so when you're looking at change, while yes, I'm one person, and I've been blessed and fortunate to meet and connect to incredible people, to create an incredible organization to impact so many people, but I'm just one person. But when you look at how do you change things on a larger scale, it is policy. And, you know, while I may not be the person who's going to necessarily write the legislation, because I lived the experience, I know I can inform that legislation, right? Like my sister here, Cassandra, who's also working on a bill right now on Fairness and Restitution Act. So when we think about how we utilize those skill sets and those things, we can, but it's necessary to work both in the system and out of the system. And sometimes people won't want to do that, right? Some people will say, no, we gotta resist. But what I know is that I've left people who were incarcerated. When I went in, there were people who were incarcerated, like Michelle West, who's still in prison after 30 plus years, who does not care who's actually sitting in office, who wants to come home. And the only way that we make those changes happen is if we work on all sides.
You've got the umbrella over a lot of issues, and you told me a little bit about what you're doing at Edgcomb, which it's transitional housing for women. It's a state-run facility. It's rather progressive for one of these programs, especially in New York State, where I feel like we've been a little bit behind in terms of how we deal with people who are incarcerated. And you're kind of, tell us what you're doing at Edgcomb, because it's
Yeah.
beautifully.
Well, I would, again, it isn't, you know, me, it is working with the system, right? So, you know, shout out to Superintendent Miller and Miss Marjorie over there to the work that they're doing there and the openness that they have, right? I was introduced, and there's another connection, from Jessica Jackson at Reform, because of the work that we do around housing and the work that we were doing at HUD. And when they were opening their new transitional facility for women, she felt that this was a natural connection. Now, often when people make those connections to systems, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff I usually have to go through. whether it's, I'll do this extensive background check that you already know I have a conviction, so why are we doing it anyway? Or, it's just a mess. I'll just call it what it is. But this was it's very seemingly easy process. And to sit and talk to a group of people that, one, have already identified that they want to make a change within the system because they've worked in that system, but then also are open and listening to someone who's actually lived that experience to say, these are the things that we should partner and work together. So one of our programs, we work with Growing Peace, which is a hydroponics tower garden that we installed up at Hope House in the Bronx, and give fresh produce to the community. They're going to be the first New York State, matter of fact, the first anywhere, where we're going to have a hydroponics tower garden installed at Edgcomb Correctional Facility for people who are presently incarcerated there. Yes, right? Huge. And when I come with all my big ideas about doing a farmer's market and bring the family and doing all these things, yes, Topeka, okay, slow down, but still very open to it. Or our digital skills training with Google, how we can offer that because they have laptops and things there for people who are incarcerated. And open to allowing other people come in. Made the connection with Unconditional Freedom, so I'm hoping we can turn that whole thing into a new prison monastery. So it's all of these relationships, but it starts there. So as a corrections professional, now he can be a leader because, some people will listen to me. I think I'm pretty convincing.
I think so too.
But some people don't, right? And so what you need to do is have friends, right? I like to say friends, and I don't even like allies, friends that you can build relationship with that can then talk to a certain community that will then listen.
Well, you're part of this transition of actually, the dignity of the formerly incarcerated person is on the table now. Mm-hmm. We didn't listen to people who were coming out. There's, the mythology in New York is you get off the bus and at Queensboro Plaza coming out of Rikers, and it's like, hell. It's, the ninth circle there. And it probably was at some time, but you're making sure things are fresh. You're doing a lot more as well. Can we get back to banking? Can we get back to skills training?
Yeah, sure.
You're like it's like we're going to college with you. You're really prepping people to go back out into the world like fully briefed.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing, and it takes work. And I'm curious about skills training. You got into that a little bit. Is that part of the agenda at Edgcomb, or it's?
Yeah, so we're doing that actually. We have some, I believe one of our trainers is here today. Also, look, I'm like, everybody's here. And so what we do, we were one of the 5 organizations that co-founded the applied digital skills training with Google for justice impacted people. And so what that is, a certificate-based program where they would get a certificate through Google for learning basic skills, but then you can get thousands of certifications you can get through Google. And so what we're doing, which is very different than any other organization in the country, we also led in making sure that hundreds of organizations were able to get grants of between $25,000 and $50,000 for them to actually operate the program through their organizations as well. But we're the only program that's actually having a facilitator-led component. So we train formerly incarcerated women to train now the community in the digital skills training, and we also are offering that training in English and in Spanish.
It's fantastic.
Very proud of that. Yes, very proud.
I met you in California.
Yeah.
So obviously you are beyond New York.
Oh, and California, look, another program. So in California, again, all of our training since COVID has been digital. So we also created a doula initiative where we trained over 125 women to be certified birth workers, prenatal, lactation, postpartum, and pregnancy. So they're certified in all 4. And we did one cohort at Las Colinas prison for 15 women presently incarcerated. So they're all certified doulas.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so really excited about scaling that program as well.
What else do you have coming up? Because I want to go back to the bank.
Okay, so the bank.
Opening a bank in America, that's like it's.
So it's not as hard as it was, because it's a fintech company, but it is still. We work with Metropolitan Bank, and so what we're doing is we're opening deposit accounts for people who are justice impacted. So we're partnering with different institutions, different prisons, so that before people leave, they actually are leaving with an active checking account. opposed to them having to come out, get their ID, try to find a bank, if the bank will take the ID that they have, if they have a conviction, and if there's any debt owed, that will exclude them from that process. They don't have to be excluded through our process.
So the bank can say no because of
bank. Yes. We're also offering health care. So what we do know is that while people do have Medicaid, and Medicaid has their special network of doctors that aren't often helpful for people who are on Medicaid. We offer a program through the Affordable Care Act that if you make under $40,000 a year, that you get your health insurance for free, 100% free, vision, dental, and health. And it's a network of doctors that actually care about our community.
That's amazing. New York, California, national?
National.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I found gaps, and I'm the type of person, I have no children. I feel like all my programs are my children. And so I feel like when I saw that there were gaps, because there's organizations that are doing incredible work. And I don't believe in competition, I believe in collaboration. But I also believe that I should not do something if someone is already doing it, great. What can I do, because I have broad vision, what can I implement that is different than someone else is doing, but that will be just as impactful to our community and our population?
In time, what's the grand scheme? Where do you, or does it ever end when you're working?
Unfortunately, the grand scheme would be, I would dream of a world where there was no woman or girl in prison or jail. In the grand scheme of things. Do I think I'll see that in my lifetime, no matter how many programs I create, no matter how hard I work? No. Why is that? Because we have poverty. And, unfortunately, poverty is criminalized. And when you have poverty that's criminalized, there will be crime and people will go to jail. And so what I have decided to do is to try to teach people and give people tools so that they can get out of poverty. And so when I think about even some of the work we're doing with HUD, right, we're able to pay people's rent up for a year. But I'm not doing that. So don't get excited, because I hear say, what? No. So what I'm doing in the program and how I'm designing the program is we will pay for your first 3 months. We'll pay your security deposit. We'll pay any moving costs. And we will help, we'll scale down. So, but while you're in there, you'll get your bank account. You'll also learn how to rebuild your credit. You'll start to save money. And in the end, I would like to see you to buy a home, because that's how you begin to build wealth. That's how you build sustainability, and that's how you get out of poverty. Now, while some people may not be able to do it in 3, 6, 9 months, it's a case-by-case basis, which is where the funding from HUD comes in, so we can do that. But, I want people to understand that you don't have to stay on these systems. You can utilize them in order to get to the next level. But there are opportunities out there. There are organizations like Ladies of Hope Ministries that will help you, but you just have to want to do the work. I didn't get here by someone giving me anything. I worked really, really hard. And I continue to work really, really hard to continue to do the things that I need to do.
Thank you very much.
You.
Are we taking questions, or is that?
Is that the finale?
I just want to say, wow, you are amazing. You inspire me. And as I spoke to you, I've been wrongfully convicted, did 9 years in the penitentiary, Bedford, Taconic, Albion, Rikers Island. And I just want to, people who have been through the system, and know what that looks like, it touches us different. And when you reach transferable skills, it speaks value, because you give me hope, you inspire me. I love to see a queen sitting on the stage and doing her thing. And I'm like, yo, yes, let's open these doors for the women, because inside of the prison system, the women, our cries go on deaf ears, and we suffer different from how the men suffer. And for you to be up on stage, sis, I salute you, because you are a woman, you've been inside, and you know the pain, you know the struggle, but you didn't let the situation and circumstances hinder you, and you turn your cries into fuel to save the rest. And I just admire you. I'm like, wow, this is great. And that's my first time actually. I come here with Exodus with the ATI, but when I heard your story, I said, I gotta go. Because I see you and me. I see me and you know what I mean? I just want to like, continue the movement. And like, you inspire me. I'm just like getting chills as you talk. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because it's not easy. It's not easy. Especially when you have kids behind the wall, 5 and 10. Just for after doing 9 years, they say, oh, we sorry. We should have never convicted you. Got caught up with the wrong crowd, the wrong man, thinking, oh, I can't tell me that. And come to find out 9 years later, they've had the wrong person. It should have been him instead of me. But what I did get out of that was I rehabilitated myself because I wanted more. And we need more of us in those prisons and knock on them doors to open up them gates. More of us to make the changes. And I just say, I salute you, sis. And I'm definitely going to send some people, reach out, connect. Hey, send some sisters to you. That's on reconciling.
Thank you so much. And welcome home to you too. And that powerful voice of yours is going to make some very, very big change. So I'm excited to help you in whatever way that I can. Yes.
We have one more back here.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I appreciate you, but the most I appreciate you when you talked about how you was raised in the church. I want to say I went to prison, but not to be locked up for years, but locked up inside the gate and all that. Scared me to death. I said, oh no, I can't do this. But I thank God for using me in there because it was 7 women that gave their heart over to the Lord. So I couldn't understand it at the time, but I thank God for using me. I thank God for women like you, as the sister said, because we need more women like you to let them know that regardless of whatever you did on the inside, it could get better if you do right in there when you get on the outside. Amen. Bless you, sis.
Amen. Thank you so much. God bless you too.
I just started school. I became, I started working on Rikers Island as a correction officer. I also started, I had a car accident, so I had to start doing other things like cutting work and stuff like that. So then I went back to school for my bachelor's. Now I'm going for my master's. I also wanted, I like the way that you express yourself about the reform, because I also did papers on like Kamala Harris and when she do the reform and like women was shackled, like in Virginia, and when they was pregnant and stuff like that. And I feel like that was very bad. Like, so I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you are doing like what you're doing. I'm so happy I'm here tonight. And I just wanted to thank you so much to hear this tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We've been able to work, and it's not just me by myself. We've worked with women who've all been formerly incarcerated around the country. We've been able to pass 15 bills nationally, ending shackling of women during child labor, making sure women have personal hygiene products free to them because we used to have to pay for pads and tampons. And that you try to keep families unified. Also on the Federal First Step Act, we were able to make sure that the dignity, it's called the Dignity for Incarcerated Women Act. We were able to make sure that the dignity provisions were put into the federal act so that no woman would be shackled during child labor on the federal level either. So it's happening, and there are coalitions still taking hold of that work and still trying to get the other 20 or so states that are still shackling women during child labor.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your extraordinary experience. I do have a question. I started a nonprofit a year ago. I'm a florist, and I start to give back to the community. Inside, I already have done workshops in halfway home for men. And do you think a program with flowers, it can be possible inside?
There's Superintendent Miller right there, and Miss Marjorie. Talk to them. They're right there at Edgcomb. I think anything is possible inside if you have the right administration who is open to working with you. Breathing life and flowers and floral workshops are definitely something that people need, right? And if you would start anywhere, I think this is the best place to start. So you have a person right here that you can talk to right now. And he gets things done. So if you're serious, you need to see him. But let him eat his food first, you know?
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right, now we can say give it up for Topeka and Ira.
Like the woman said, let's give her a hand. Dr. Topeka Sam and Ira Silverberg.